Ladies and gentlemen, a third Minecraft developer interview has officially dropped into the community. Between our Tigzimi Nenbot interview, our Dear TV Olrap interview, and now the Camman Anna Lundgren collab of all time, this year, for the first time in years, we've been spoiled when it comes to developers directly talking to the community and sometimes revealing a little bit too much. Just this past week, a brand new developer interview has dropped into the community, and in this brand new one, everything from rare features and how they add them to minecarts was actually discussed. Pour yourself a cup of warm Earl Grey tea. After all, it's the cold time of the year. Snuggle up to your lover. Of course, smack that like button. And without further ado, let's unpack this brand new interview. So first up here, we're going to hit it with the basics. This interview, it was done between Camman18 and Anna Lundgren, none other than the senior producer at Minecraft, and also, I believe, the one who informed us that the devs canceled the Firefly all those years ago. Anna is one of those devs that is definitely a big deal and has been with Mojang for quite some time. She's also a very credible source on updates, information, and everything like that. The developers reached out to Camman18, offered an interview, and then hit Camman with the condition that all of the questions would have to be sent over to Mojang first. They were going to screen the questions, which would lead to this interview being a little bit more on the script than our usual ones, and the questions were meant to mainly stick to the brand new Mounts of Mayhem drop. But that definitely doesn't mean that the interview never parts from the Mounts of Mayhem drop, because it does sometimes. And even when it's stuck on the Mounts of Mayhem firmly, we can read in between the lines and maybe learn a little bit more about what Mojang is doing next. Oh, and maybe most importantly, this interview today, for the first time this year, was actually done fully in English, a language of which I understand for the most part, depending on the day of the week. Now, our interview sort of kicks off this time around with the talk of rare features. For example, the Mounts of Mayhem version of this, well, that's got to be the Coral Nautilus, the rarest thing in the entire drop, and the rarest thing added to the game this year. On the interesting topic of rarity and adding things to the game that maybe aren't the easiest to find in the world, maybe something like a shard armor trim, or even far more common but still difficult, the sniffer egg. Anna revealed that the devs not only like to add rare things to the game that might be a little bit of a challenge for players to find, but that a lot of these more rare, difficult to find features are almost more so intended for more of those experienced players in the community. Experienced players, dedicated players, you know, ones that aren't like just chewing on their thumb and playing the game for the very first time. Of course, no offense to the thumb chewers out there. I mean, hey, you gotta start somewhere. That's kind of beautiful to hear that Mojang actually acknowledges that there are players who might have a little bit more complex, fully developed brain structure, if you will, out there. Mojang always is trying to come up with more rare features to add to the game for the true dedicated ones out there. After talking about rare features for a little bit of time, the conversation moved over to new features coming to Minecraft, how the developers actually pick what comes to the game, and how they decide that when they've decided what should come to the game, how that thing will be inside of the game. Does that make sense? Our modern example is the Nautilus, something that does technically exist inside the real world, but is very, very different than how it is in the real world. Yeah, if you were about to book a flight over to the local ocean and jump on a Nautilus trying to breathe forever, don't do it. I don't think it works. The developer's thought process when adding new features to the game, specifically maybe something from the real world, is, well, one, how can we Minecraftify it? Like, can you imagine if they just slapped this texture into the game? Oh my god, that would be the most horrifying thing in the entire world. So they gotta figure out how to Minecraftify it, make it look like Minecraft, but then also make it feel and function like Minecraft as well. We learned that when the developers are trying to add something new to the game, when they are Minecraftifying it, they take into context the entire Minecraft world, how this new thing, whatever it is, could fit in and interact with the entire world. And then the developers, they also like to take a look at features that have been in the game for quite some time. Say, maybe the conduit, they like to take a look at those features that have been in the game and analyze how maybe whatever the new thing they're trying to add to the game, the Nautilus, could maybe, say, interact with that old thing that's been in the game and maybe finish it up a little bit more. Somewhere around this point in the interview is where we learned that though the Nautilus shell has existed in the game for a long time, the idea for the Nautilus has not existed in the minds of the developers for that long at all. We learned that when the developers were working on the Mounts of Mayhem update, they knew they wanted to add a water mount to the game. They took a look at some of the things in the game that could use a little bit more, namely the Nautilus shell that's kind of been here awkwardly, just chilling around unexplained for a long time. And then they said, hey, what about maybe the Nautilus becomes a mob? While adding the Nautilus, they loved the idea of connecting the Nautilus to some of the existing features in the game as well. So Nautilus Shell, and then the Heart of the Sea as well. You see this fancy little Heart of the Sea conduit thing? It'll grant you the conduit power effect, which essentially gives you water breathing. That right there is how the devs got the idea to have the Nautilus give you permanent water breathing while you are under the water doing your thing. Next up here, the challenge. As we know, the Mounts of Mayhem update, it's the first update in a long time that naturally just makes Minecraft a little bit more difficult. And we're not talking about optional challenges, we're just talking about things that happen on the day-to-day in-game. In the desert, you find this brand new dangerous mob. In the plains biome, you can run into this zombie horse that is actually terrifying. It happened to me in survival. I was fully geared up, and oh my god, I loved it, but I hated it at the same time. Yeah, so going into the Mounts of Mayhem update, the goal here was combat and adding a little bit more challenge to the game. It's safe to say that the Mounts of Mayhem drop is easily the scariest drop that has dropped into the game this year. Camman then made note of last year's winter drop, the Pale Garden update, and how quite curiously, both of our winter drop updates that we've seen so far have been terrifying, scary updates. Are the developers always trying to add scary content to the game in the winter? Well, according to Anna, no, not necessarily, but she did think that was an interesting observation. This point in the interview is where we learned of the specific theme for the Mounts of Mayhem update being combat and adding a little bit of challenge to the game, like we just talked about. Now, 2025, throughout the duration of this year, obviously, we've seen 4 drops total. Now, back in 2024, when this new update drop system was announced, it was revealed that the drops will come at us in a multitude of different sizes, some of them being smaller, some of them being larger. Very intriguingly, from this interview, we learned that when it comes to drops, the size of them isn't really planned out as all. Instead, it's about the complexity of the features. Take, for example, a drop that happened earlier this year, the Chase in the Skies drop. A drop that was definitely good, but at least compared to something like the new Mounts of Mayhem drop, it didn't add anywhere near as much content to the game. Well, that's probably because Vibrant Visuals was going on Bedrock Edition at the time, and also, a Happy Ghast is one of the most advanced things to be added to Minecraft, like literally ever. Meanwhile, maybe something like Spring to Life that added a billion quadrillion bunch of new plants, new mob variants, and even more changes across the board, well, those are a little bit more simple, so we got a bigger update. The curious thing here is that the features inside of the latest drop, the Mounts of Mayhem update, well, if added on their own initially, they would have been really complex, but because the developers sort of built out this whole movement system for the Happy Ghast and had that figured out, well, something like the Nautilus, which is basically the same movement as the Happy Ghast, except confined to the water now, because they figured it out earlier on, they could add the Nautilus and a whole lot of other things alongside the Nautilus to the game, because the complexities and all of the coding jazz, all of the difficult coding jazz figuring it out, was already done. This makes me theorize that naturally, as time passes and more things are capable within the code functionalities of the game, the drops might get bigger and bigger. I mean, if you think about it, when the devs have a new idea for a feature that hasn't done before, say the Happy Ghast or something like that with flying movement, well, they have to invent this flying movement system in the game. But now, in the future, if they want to add another complex movement system to the game, well, they could basically just take the Happy Ghast and build off of that thing. They also do try and consider the theme of a drop when picking features for it. So that'll mean that going forward into the future, when we take a look at new drops, they will probably stick around something common, like the Spring to Life drop with animal variants and plants, the Mounts of Mayhem drop with a bunch of terrifying brand new mounts. Now you remember when I said it, this interview was meant to initially just be about the Mounts of Mayhem update. Specifically relating to the Mounts of Mayhem update, we had some questions about the spear and how development was with it. It was revealed by Anna that the balancing of the spears, or balancing of this new weapon, was a little bit difficult. And, well, yeah, that's about all I have to say on that one. So instead, a quick reminder to double check and make sure you're subscribed. Minecraft updates next year, there's going to be at least 4 of them. It's going to be crazy. You don't want to miss it. Now, in Camman's interview, the real juice starts to slide in right near the end of it. You see, eventually, the conversation moves to other mobs that are in the game, but not really in the game at the same time. For example, the Illusioner. For example, another one, the Giant. Both mobs that are here in the game, but are basically completely unused. It was pointed out that these 2 mobs, specifically, they kind of directly parallel the case of the zombie horse before the Mounts of Mayhem drop, being in the game, but just basically unused. Now, in her wording here, which I thought was quite interesting, Anna was pretty careful and said that the developers always consider old features. And by old features, I suppose I mean something that is maybe in the game, but not fully fleshed out, or maybe not even used at all. And by old features, I also mean not even just things in the game, but maybe things known to the community as well. For example, the copper golem. Then things went on to point out that throughout the duration of 2025, in almost every single update, something was added to the game that the community has been waiting for a long time. The firefly spring to life, the copper golem, the copper dropper, and then most new, the zombie horse waiting around for a long time. Pretty much the only drop that didn't have something old and known to the community before is the happy gas store. And so, taking a look at the things that were added to the game this year, the likelihood of things that we already know about coming to the game, I think it's safe to say that it is insanely high. And I mean, not only if you take a look at what they've done, but if you take a look at the community's reception of all of the updates, interestingly, the update themed around something from the past entirely was like the most popular update this year. I think we can bank on, for certain, in 2026, even more old things coming to the game at some point. And then finally, it almost brings a tear to my eyes, this old dusty toggle, the minecart improvement toggle. Forget about the other ones. The minecart improvement toggle, it was brought up. Camman had to do it. He's the minecart man. You know how it goes. Even though this interview was meant to stick to the Mounts of Mayhem update, the developers allowed Camman to ask the question about minecarts, which, for one, I think is quite intriguing. So he was able to ask a question about minecarts, and basically whatever happened to that experimental minecart toggle, have the developers all but completely abandon it? Do they remember it? And, well, Anna kind of chuckled and said, yes, they definitely remember it, and they hear the feedback on minecarts, and know that the community loves that update. I believe here there are multiple things that you could unpack with this minecart jazz. For one, Camman being allowed to specifically ask a question about it, when Mojang could easily and might have even shot down some of the other questions that Camman had. It's interesting that a question about minecarts was definitely cool. I almost wonder if this is one of those little, really subtle things that make sense in the future once we see an update. And you know, we're like, oh shoot, the dev was kind of teasing something on the low. And how Anna was about the minecart response, I mean, it was pretty promising here. The most beautiful takeaway from this interview, minecart update, we're not lost forever. In fact, we could be so back. Developer interviews, I always love them. They're beautiful. Thanks to Camman and Anna for doing this interview. I'm quite hopeful that in the future, maybe next year, we'll get even more developer interviews because these are always fire. But for today, that's about all I have. On the end card is a playlist with Minecraft news. There's even more dev interview stuff there. Check it out, smash the like button, subscribe, and maybe even join Members Club to support yours truly while getting some extra perks for you too. I'll see you all tomorrow, muchachos. Goodbye.